Maya Torres pushed her cart down the sterile corridors of Fort Bragg's Special Operations Command at 3:47 hours, the squeaky wheel echoing through halls that most civilians would never see. Her gray uniform hung loose on her frame, designed to make her forgettable, just another invisible worker maintaining the machinery of America's most lethal military unit. The night shift suited her perfectly. Fewer people, fewer questions, fewer chances for someone to look too closely at the woman who'd been cleaning their secrets for 3 years. She paused outside briefing room Alpha 7, fishing for her master key while balancing a bottle of industrial disinfectant. The room had been used earlier for what the schedule euphemistically called training evaluation, but Maya knew better. She'd learned to read the aftermath like crime scene investigators read blood spatter. The scuff marks on the floor, the way chairs were arranged, the subtle stress fractures in the concrete wall. Someone had been interrogated here. Hard. Maya entered the room and immediately cataloged the details others would miss. Zip tie, residue on one chair leg. A small dark stain on the floor that standard cleaning wouldn't touch. Fresh gouges in the metal table that spoke of fingernails digging for purchase. She'd seen these signs before, in places that officially didn't exist, during operations that never happened. Moving with practiced efficiency, she began her work. First, the surfaces everyone could see, wiping down chairs, emptying trash, mopping the visible floor. Then came the real cleaning, the kind that erased evidence rather than just dirt. Maya mixed her chemicals with the expertise of someone who understood which combinations broke down organic matter and which destroyed DNA evidence. The door's electronic lock clicked, and Maya's body tensed for a fraction of a second before she resumed mopping. In her peripheral vision, she tracked 3 figures entering the room: Captain Blake, whom she recognized from his personnel file, and 2 men in expensive suits who didn't belong on a military base at 4 a.m. Maya kept her head down, invisible as always, but her hearing was acute enough to catch every word. "The leak has been plugged," the taller suit said, settling into a chair that Maya had just cleaned. "Permanently." Captain Blake shifted uncomfortably. "Sergeant Morrison had a family. People will ask questions." "Training accidents happen," the second suit replied coldly, "especially to soldiers who forget their place in the chain of command." Maya continued mopping, her movements mechanical while her mind processed the implications. Sergeant Morrison, she remembered him, a quiet man who always said good morning to the cleaning staff. His personnel file indicated he worked intelligence analysis, specifically tracking weapons shipments. If he'd been eliminated for asking the wrong questions. "What about the others?" Blake asked. "Morrison wasn't working alone. Intelligence suggests he had contacts." "We're aware," the tall suit cut him off. "Each name on Morrison's list will be handled appropriately. Some might have accidents. Others might simply receive transfers to places where asking questions becomes inadvisable." Maya reached for a cleaning cloth on the high shelf, and her sleeve rode up slightly, exposing 2 inches of intricate black ink on her forearm. The tattoo was a work of art and pain, a skull wrapped in barbed wire with text underneath in military stencil font. Most of it remained hidden, but the visible portion showed enough detail to make an expert look twice. The suits continued their conversation, but Maya noticed Blake's attention had shifted. His eyes were fixed on her arm with the intensity of someone trying to solve a puzzle. Maya quickly pulled her sleeve down and resumed cleaning, but the damage was done. Blake was studying her now, really looking at her for the first time in the 3 years she'd worked here. "The Colombian shipment arrives Thursday," the shorter suit was saying. "Blake, your boys will provide perimeter security. Nothing more. They don't see the cargo, they don't ask about the cargo." "Understood," Blake replied, though his voice carried reluctance. "But my men aren't stupid. They'll know we're not guarding medical supplies." "Your men follow orders," the tall suit said. "That's what keeps them breathing." Maya moved toward the door, planning her exit, but Blake's voice stopped her. "Excuse me," he said. Maya turned, affecting the slightly startled expression of someone caught off guard. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry if I'm disturbing your meeting. I can come back." "No, it's fine." Blake stood, walking closer. "I was just curious about your tattoo. I couldn't help but notice." Maya's training screamed at her to deflect, distract, disappear. "Oh, it's nothing special. Just some old artwork I got when I was young and stupid." "May I see it?" Blake's tone was casual, but Maya caught the steel underneath. This wasn't really a request. The suits had gone silent, watching the exchange with predatory interest. Maya realized that her carefully maintained invisibility had just evaporated. 3 years of perfect camouflage, blown by a moment's carelessness. "I'd rather not, sir," Maya said, backing toward the door. "It's not really appropriate for work." Blake moved to block her path, his hand resting casually on his sidearm. "I'm not asking as your supervisor. I'm asking as someone who's seen a lot of military ink over the years. That partial design, it looked familiar." Maya's mind raced through options. Run and confirm their suspicions. Stay and risk exposure. Fight and blow her cover completely. She chose a fourth option, controlled revelation. "It's from my brother's unit," she lied smoothly. "He died in Afghanistan. I got the tattoo to remember him." "What unit?" the tall suit asked, suddenly interested. Maya had prepared for this question years ago. 82nd Airborne. He was deployed to. "Show us," Blake interrupted. "If it's just a memorial tattoo, there's no reason to hide it." The room fell silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Maya could feel the weight of their attention, the subtle shift in posture that meant they'd moved from casual interest to active threat assessment. These weren't just corrupt officers. They were hunters who'd caught a scent. Maya slowly rolled up her sleeve, revealing the full tattoo. The skull's empty sockets seemed to stare accusingly from her forearm, surrounded by barbed wire that twisted into infinity symbols. Below it, in perfect military stencil lettering, read the words that made Blake's face go white. "Death before dishonor, TF Reaper." The tall suit stood abruptly, his hand moving inside his jacket. "Task Force Reaper died 3 years ago, every last member." "Officially," Maya said quietly, dropping her cleaning supplies and letting her real voice emerge, the voice that had once commanded the most elite operators in the military. "But you know what they say about killing someone who's already supposed to be dead." Blake fumbled for his weapon, but Maya was already moving. 3 years of playing the helpless janitor had been excellent cover for mapping every inch of this facility, every exit route, every weapon cache. She'd been the mouse in their walls, but mice who survived this long usually did so for a reason. Maya hit the lights, plunging the room into darkness as emergency lighting kicked in. In the red glow, she looked less like a janitor and more like what she truly was, a ghost who'd been cleaning up other people's messes for far too long. The real cleaning was about to begin. The emergency lights cast everything in hellish red as Maya vanished into the corridor like smoke. Captain Blake stood frozen in the briefing room, his service weapon half drawn, staring at the doorway where a dead woman had just walked away. The two suits were shouting into their phones, their carefully controlled operation suddenly spiraling into chaos. "Lock down the building," the tall suit barked. "Nobody gets in or out." But Maya was already 3 floors down, moving through maintenance tunnels she'd memorized during countless night shifts. She emerged in the Delta Force wing, where the real operators lived, men who killed for a living and slept soundly afterward. If she was going to survive the next hour, she'd need allies, and there was only one person in this building who might believe her story. Sergeant First Class David Martinez was reviewing mission reports in his quarters when the base alarm started wailing. A 12-year veteran of special operations, Martinez had developed an instinct for trouble that had kept him alive through 4 combat deployments. The emergency lockdown protocols weren't scheduled, which meant something had gone very wrong, very fast. He was reaching for his gear when someone knocked on his door. 3 short raps, pause. 2 more raps. It was a tactical signal he'd learned in advanced training, one that civilians wouldn't know. Martinez grabbed his sidearm before answering. Maya stood in the hallway, still wearing her janitor uniform but carrying herself differently now. The submissive posture was gone, replaced by the bearing of someone who'd commanded respect in very dangerous places. "Sergeant Martinez," she said quietly, "I need 5 minutes of your time." "Ma'am, the base is in lockdown. You need to return to—" "My name is Lieutenant Maya Santos," she interrupted. "Call sign Ghost 7, Task Force Reaper, and according to your files, I died in Syria 3 years ago." Martinez felt the world tilt sideways. He'd read the after-action reports on Task Force Reaper's final mission. 12 operators had walked into a compound in Damascus. None had walked out. The building had collapsed under sustained rocket fire, and satellite imagery confirmed no survivors. The unit had been quietly disbanded, its existence scrubbed from official records. "You're the janitor," Martinez said slowly. "I'm a lot of things." Maya glanced down the corridor, checking for pursuit. "Right now, I'm a dead woman who's been watching corrupt officers use this base to traffic weapons to terrorist organizations. And as of 20 minutes ago, they know I'm alive." Martinez studied her face, looking for tells that would mark her as delusional or dangerous. Instead, he saw the 1,000-yard stare that marked veterans of the worst kind of combat, and scars along her hairline that spoke of serious head trauma. More telling was the way she positioned herself, always facing the exit, weight balanced on the balls of her feet, hands positioned for quick access to weapons. "Prove it," he said. Maya smiled grimly and rolled up her sleeve, revealing the Task Force Reaper tattoo in full detail. But Martinez's attention was drawn to something else, a second tattoo on her wrist, smaller and more personal. It was a list of names in tiny script, 12 of them with dates. He recognized some of the names from the classified casualty reports. "Those are my teammates," Maya said, noticing his focus. "I carry them with me. Sanchez, Rodriguez, Thompson. All good operators who died because someone in our chain of command sold us out." The report said insurgents. The reports lied. Maya's voice carried the weight of 3 years of suppressed rage. "We were investigating a weapons trafficking ring that reached into the Pentagon. Someone leaked our location to the enemy, then made sure the air support arrived too late to save anyone." Martinez holstered his weapon. Either she was telling the truth, or she was the most elaborate enemy agent in history. Given that she'd had 3 years of access to classified areas and hadn't killed anyone until tonight, he was inclined to believe her. "Why come to me?" he asked. "Because your file says you've been asking questions about missing weapons shipments. Because you filed 3 separate reports about security irregularities that were buried by your superiors. And because 20 minutes ago, I heard Captain Blake and 2 civilian contractors discussing your imminent training accident." The blood drained from Martinez's face. "What?" "They killed Sergeant Morrison tonight. Made it look like equipment malfunctioned during training. You're next on their list, along with anyone else who's noticed the pattern." Martinez grabbed his tactical vest and started loading magazines. "How many are we dealing with?" "Unknown. Blake's definitely compromised, along with at least 6 other officers I've identified over the past 3 years. The civilian contractors have unlimited funding and professional operators on payroll. They've been moving weapons through this base for at least 5 years, using Delta Force missions as cover for transport." "And you've been watching all this time. Why didn't you report?" "Report to who?" Maya's laugh was bitter. "The same chain of command that murdered my team. I've been gathering evidence, building cases, preparing for the day when I could take them all down at once. Tonight wasn't my choice." The base intercom crackled to life. "All personnel, we have reports of an armed intruder in the building. Lock your doors and await further instructions. They're painting you as the threat, Martinez observed. Smart move. Who's going to believe the janitor over decorated officers? Maya checked her watch. We have maybe 10 minutes before they flood this wing with security. They can't afford to let either of us reach the outside world. Martinez finished gearing up and grabbed a secure satellite phone. I've got contacts at JSOC who aren't compromised, if we can reach them. Negative, Maya shook her head. The corruption goes higher than you think. I've seen shipping manifests signed by people who shouldn't even know this base exists. We're on our own until we can gather enough evidence to prove everything. What kind of evidence? Maya smiled, and for the first time, Martinez saw the predator that had made Task Force Reaper legendary. The kind that's been sitting in my janitor's closet for 3 years. Financial records, shipping documents, recorded conversations, photographs of meetings that never officially happened. I've been a very thorough cleaning lady. The lights in the corridor suddenly went out, replaced by emergency lighting. Through the building's PA system, they could hear Blake's voice. Security teams to level 3. We have confirmed hostile contact. They're coming, Martinez said, chambering around. Good. Maya pulled a small device from her cleaning cart, a modified radio that looked like standard maintenance equipment, but was actually a sophisticated communications scanner. I've been listening to their operations frequency for months. Blake just ordered teams to both our locations, but he's also pulled security from the evidence storage facility. You want to go after the evidence now. I want to end this tonight. Your friends are going to start dying tomorrow if we don't act. Morrison was just the beginning. Maya's voice hardened. I've spent 3 years being invisible, learning their patterns, preparing for war. The only question is whether you're ready to fight alongside a dead woman. Martinez looked at this small, unassuming janitor who was apparently one of the most lethal operators the military had ever produced. The smart play would be to surrender, explain that he was just following orders, hope they believed him. But Martinez hadn't survived 12 years in special operations by making the smart play. What's the plan, Ghost 7? Maya's smile could have frozen blood. We're going to do what we do best, Sergeant. We're going to hunt. She reached into her cart and pulled out what looked like a standard floor polisher. With a few quick manipulations, it transformed into a compact assault rifle with custom modifications. From the same cart came body armor disguised as a tool belt, enough ammunition for a small war, and communications gear that definitely wasn't standard janitor equipment. 3 years of preparation, Maya explained, watching Martinez's expression. I told you I was thorough. The sound of tactical boots echoed through the stairwell. Blake's security teams were closing in, expecting to find a confused janitor and a loyal soldier. Instead, they were about to encounter 2 ghosts who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Maya checked her weapon one final time. Welcome back to the war, Sergeant. The hunting season was about to begin. The evidence storage facility sat in the basement of Fort Bragg's most secure building, 3 levels below ground, and protected by systems that could stop a tank assault. Maya and Martinez moved through the maintenance tunnels like shadows, following routes that Maya had mapped during countless night shifts. The emergency lighting cast their faces in stark relief as they navigated around steam pipes and electrical conduits. Security checkpoint ahead, Maya whispered, holding up her hand. Through a ventilation grate, they could see 2 guards at a reinforced door, both armed with M4 carbines and looking nervous. Standard rotation puts 4 guards on that post, Martinez observed. Blake pulled half the security like you predicted. Maya nodded, studying the guards' positions through the grate. Private Chen and Specialist Williams. Chen has 2 kids and a gambling problem. Williams sends most of his pay home to his mother in Alabama. Neither one knows what they're really guarding. How do you know all that? I've been cleaning their personal spaces for 3 years. You learn things about people when you handle their trash, wash their coffee cups, see what they keep in their desk drawers. Maya's voice carried the weight of someone who'd become invisible by necessity. These boys aren't the enemy, they're just following orders. Martinez checked his weapon, so how do we get past them without? Maya was already moving. She dropped through a ceiling access panel behind the guards, landing silently in the corridor. Before either man could react, she disabled their communications gear with an electromagnetic pulse device disguised as a cleaning supply scanner. "Gentlemen," she said calmly, keeping her hands visible, "I need you to set your weapons down and step away from the door." Chen spun toward her, rifle rising. "Ma'am, you're not authorized to be in this area. I need you to." He stopped mid-sentence, staring at her face. After 3 years of brief encounters in hallways, he was finally seeing Maya clearly. The scars along her hairline, the way she carried herself, the tactical awareness in her eyes. This wasn't the timid janitor who always apologized for being in the way. "You're the janitor," Williams said slowly. "I'm a lot of things tonight." Maya stepped closer and both guards instinctively backed away. There was something predatory in her movement now, like a wolf that had stopped pretending to be a sheep. "Right now, I'm someone who's trying to save your lives." "Ma'am, I don't understand." "Captain Blake just issued orders to eliminate anyone who might have information about weapons trafficking through this base," Maya said quietly. "Your names are on the list because you've seen too many medical supply shipments that require armed guards and radiation screening." Chen's face went pale. "How do you know about?" "Because I've been watching, learning, preparing." Maya gestured toward the secure door. "What's behind that door isn't medical supplies or standard equipment. It's evidence of crimes that reach into the highest levels of our government, and men are dying to keep it secret." Martinez dropped down from the access panel, causing both guards to swing their weapons toward him. "Easy," he said, hands raised. "Sergeant Martinez, Delta Force, I can vouch for her." "Sergeant Martinez," Williams lowered his rifle slightly. "Sir, we have orders to." "Your orders just changed," Martinez said firmly. "As of right now, you're under my operational command. Set your weapons down and help us get through that door." The guards exchanged uncertain glances. They'd been trained to follow orders, but the situation had moved far beyond their normal experience. Maya could see them struggling with competing loyalties, duty to their posts versus trust in a respected NCO. "I'll make it simple for you," Maya said. "In 10 minutes, Captain Blake's security team is going to arrive here with orders to eliminate all witnesses to tonight's events. That includes both of you. Your choice is to help us expose the truth or die protecting lies." Chen made his decision first, setting down his rifle and producing an access card. "Whatever's going on, I just want to go home to my kids." Williams followed suit, though reluctance was written across his face. "This better not be some kind of test, Sergeant." "Trust me," Martinez said grimly. "If this was a test, we'd all have failed already." The security door required 3 separate access codes and biometric verification. Maya had spent months observing the entry procedures, noting which personnel had access and when they used it. She'd even retrieved discarded biometric scanners from the trash, analyzing the stored data for patterns. "I need someone with level 7 clearance," Maya said, examining the scanner. "Chen, your card won't work. Williams, yours either." "Then how?" Martinez started. Maya pulled out what looked like a standard cleaning spray bottle, but the liquid inside was actually a chemical compound that reacted with residual skin oils. She sprayed the biometric scanner, revealing the faint outlines of multiple handprints. "Captain Blake was here 6 hours ago," she said, studying the patterns. "He always uses his right thumb, applies too much pressure, and has a small scar on the pad from a training accident in 2018. From her cart, Maya produced a sophisticated device disguised as a floor buffer attachment. It projected a three-dimensional hologram of Blake's thumbprint, complete with the unique pressure patterns and thermal signature that the scanner expected. "Jesus," Williams breathed. "How long have you been planning this?" 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days, Maya replied without hesitation. "Since the night I crawled out from under my teammates' bodies and realized that our own government had killed us." The door clicked open, revealing a corridor that stretched deeper into the facility. Emergency lighting illuminated steel walls covered with warning placards in multiple languages. The air carried the antiseptic smell of a laboratory mixed with something else, the metallic odor of weapons recently fired. They moved in tactical formation, Maya taking point with the fluid grace of someone who'd done this countless times before. The corridor opened into a vast storage area filled with shipping containers, each one marked with false documentation claiming medical supplies or humanitarian aid. "My God," Martinez whispered, reading the shipping labels. "These are going to Syria, Yemen, Somalia, every active conflict zone in the world." Maya was already at a computer terminal, her fingers flying across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. Financial records show payments from 17 different terrorist organizations, all routed through shell companies that trace back to Pentagon accounts. Someone's been selling weapons to both sides of every conflict, using our missions as cover for delivery. "Who's behind it?" Chen asked, staring at a container marked for shipment to Damascus. Maya's screen filled with names, photographs, and financial records. At the top of the hierarchy was a face that made Martinez's blood run cold: General Patricia Hawkins, Deputy Director of Defense Intelligence. "General Hawkins has been running this operation for 8 years, Maya said, downloading files to encrypted drives. "She uses special operations missions to transport weapons, then sells intelligence about our movements to enemy forces. Task Force Reaper discovered the pattern during our Syria mission." "So she had you killed," Williams said quietly. "She tried." Maya's voice carried 3 years of suppressed rage. "But killing someone who's already supposed to be dead is harder than it looks." The building's alarm system suddenly changed pitch, signaling an internal security breach. Over the facility's speakers, Blake's voice echoed through the corridors. "Security teams, we have confirmed hostile penetration of Level 7 storage. Use of lethal force is authorized." "They know where we are," Martinez said, checking his ammunition. Maya continued downloading files, her expression grim. "Chen, Williams, there's a maintenance tunnel behind that container. Follow it north for 200 meters, then take the ladder up to sublevel 1. Don't stop, don't look back, and don't trust anyone in uniform until you're off this base." "What about you?" Chen asked. "I'm going to finish what my team started 3 years ago." Maya pocketed the encrypted drives and pulled additional weapons from hidden compartments in the storage area. "This evidence will expose the entire network, but only if it reaches the right people." Martinez grabbed her arm. "Maya, we can't fight our way out. There are too many of them." Maya looked at him with eyes that had seen too much death, carried too much weight. "I'm not fighting my way out, Sergeant. I'm fighting my way through. General Hawkins, Captain Blake, and every other person who profited from my teammates' deaths, they all die tonight." The sound of tactical boots echoed from multiple directions as Blake's teams closed in. Maya checked her weapons one final time, her face showing the cold determination that had made Task Force Reaper legendary. "Welcome to the endgame," she said quietly. "Time to clean house." The first security team entered the storage facility with textbook precision, 4 operators in full tactical gear, moving in a diamond formation with overlapping fields of fire. They expected to find a cornered janitor and a confused soldier. Instead, they walked into a killing field that Maya had been preparing for 3 years. The explosion that greeted them wasn't from military ordnance. It was from industrial cleaning supplies that Maya had strategically placed throughout the facility. Ammonia and bleach created choking clouds of chlorine gas, while pressurized floor wax containers became improvised claymores when rigged with motion sensors from her equipment. Contact, contact. The team leader's voice crackled over the radio as his men stumbled through the chemical fog, their night vision useless in the swirling chaos. Maya moved through the confusion like a ghost, her intimate knowledge of the facility giving her advantages that no amount of training could overcome. She'd memorized every sight line, every blind spot, every piece of equipment that could be weaponized. The industrial floor buffer became a battering ram that sent one operator flying into a shipping container. A high-pressure steam line, carefully loosened during months of maintenance work, created a scalding barrier that forced the team to retreat. Martinez watched in amazement as the unassuming janitor transformed into a one-woman army. She moved with the fluid precision of someone who'd spent years perfecting the art of violence, but her methods were uniquely adapted to her environment. Where other operators relied on firepower, Maya used ingenuity. Where they depended on armor, she relied on invisibility. Team 2, what's your status? Blake's voice echoed through the facility's speakers. We're taking heavy casualties down here, came the panicked response. The target has the entire level rigged. It's like fighting someone who knows exactly where we're going to be. Because she did. Maya had been watching their training exercises for 3 years, learning their tactics, their preferred approaches, their individual habits. She knew that Team 2 always cleared rooms counterclockwise, that their point man had a blind spot on his left side due to an old injury, that their demolitions expert was claustrophobic and would avoid confined spaces. She used all of it. The team's demolitions expert found himself alone in a maintenance corridor, separated from his unit by a series of chemical barriers. The passage was barely wide enough for one person, exactly the kind of space that made him nervous. As he advanced cautiously, his foot triggered a pressure plate that Maya had installed under a loose floor tile. The corridor filled with the high-pitched whine of a fire alarm, masking the sound of Maya dropping from an access panel behind him. The man never knew what hit him. One moment he was checking corners for threats, the next he was unconscious on the floor while Maya relieved him of his equipment. She'd used a sleeper hold that would keep him down for hours, non-lethal but effective. This is wrong, Martinez said, watching Maya work. We should be calling for backup, not. Backup from who? Maya snapped, rigging explosive charges on a load-bearing support column. Blake controls base security. General Hawkins has contacts throughout JSOC. The corruption reaches into every level of command structure we know about. She was right, and Martinez knew it. Their only hope was to gather enough evidence to expose the entire network, and that meant staying alive long enough to get the information to someone they could trust. The problem was figuring out who that might be. Maya's radio crackled with intercepted communications from Blake's teams. Ghost 7, this is command. We have you surrounded. Surrender now and we can work something out. Maya keyed her own radio using Blake's frequency. This is Ghost 7. I've been dead for 3 years, Captain. You can't kill someone who doesn't officially exist. Maya Santos died in Syria. You're just a janitor with delusions. Maybe, but this janitor has spent 3 years learning everything about your operation. Bank accounts in the Caymans, shipping manifests for weapons deliveries, meeting transcripts with terrorist buyers, and photographs of you personally supervising weapons transfers to Syrian insurgents. The silence on the radio stretched for several seconds before Blake responded. What do you want? General Hawkins here, tonight in person. That's impossible. Then enjoy explaining to your buyers why their next shipment will be intercepted by federal agents. Maya smiled grimly as she watched security feeds from hidden cameras throughout the facility. I've already uploaded copies of everything to secure servers with automated release triggers. If I don't check in every 12 hours, Everything goes public. Martinez realized what she was doing. Maya wasn't just fighting for survival. She was orchestrating the final act of a 3-year investigation. Every move she'd made tonight had been designed to force her enemies into the open, to make them desperate enough to bring their leadership within reach. "She's coming," Blake's voice said finally. "General Hawkins will be here in 30 minutes, but you're going to surrender everything, all the evidence, all the copies." "Of course," Maya said pleasantly, "just as soon as she arrives." Martinez grabbed her arm. "You're not seriously going to surrender." "I'm not going to surrender anything." Maya's expression was grim as she continued rigging explosives throughout the facility. "General Hawkins killed my team, sold weapons to our enemies, and profited from American deaths for 8 years. When she walks into this building, she's not walking back out. That's assassination. That's justice." Maya's voice carried the weight of 3 years of planning, 3 years of watching her teammates' killers profit from their deaths. "The legal system can't touch her. She has too many connections, too much classified protection. But explosives don't care about security clearances." The building shuddered as Maya triggered controlled demolitions on the upper levels, sealing off escape routes and funneling Blake's remaining teams into areas where she held every advantage. She'd turned Fort Bragg's most secure facility into an elaborate trap, with herself as both bait and executioner. "Movement on level 1, Martinez reported, checking the security feeds. "Looks like the general's convoy just arrived." Maya nodded, making final adjustments to her explosive setup. 12 operators plus personal security. General Hawkins never travels light. "How are we supposed to fight that many?" Maya smiled, and Martinez finally understood why Task Force Reaper had been legendary. "We're not going to fight them, Sergeant. We're going to let them fight each other." She activated a final program on her computer, one that began broadcasting intercepted communications from the facility's speakers. Blake's voice filled the building, discussing weapons sales and assassination orders. General Hawkins could be heard authorizing the murder of American soldiers who discovered the truth. "Every operator in that convoy is going to hear their commanding officers discussing treason," Maya explained. "Most of them are good soldiers who enlisted to protect their country. When they realize their chain of command has been selling weapons to terrorists." The effect was immediate. Maya's hidden cameras showed confusion spreading through the convoy as operators began questioning their orders. Several refused to advance when Blake commanded them to eliminate domestic terrorists in the facility. "This is General Hawkins," a new voice came over the radio. "All units disregard previous orders. We have a situation that requires careful handling." Maya keyed her radio. "Hello, General. Welcome to my office. I've been waiting 3 years for this conversation." "Lieutenant Santos, I wondered if you'd survived Syria." "Disappointed." "Impressed, actually. Very few people could have orchestrated what you've accomplished tonight." Maya watched the security feeds as General Hawkins entered the building with a small personal detail, leaving the confused convoy outside. The woman who destroyed Task Force Reaper was finally within reach. "It's time to finish this," Maya said quietly. The final cleaning was about to begin. General Patricia Hawkins moved through the facility's corridors with the measured confidence of someone who'd spent decades commanding respect through fear. Her personal security detail, 3 hand-picked operators who knew better than to ask questions, flanked her as she descended toward the storage levels. Maya watched their approach through her network of hidden cameras, noting the subtle tells that marked these men as different from Blake's confused teams above. "Private military contractors," Maya observed to Martinez, studying the feeds. "Probably Blackwater alumni. They know exactly what they're protecting." The general's voice echoed through the facility's speakers as she activated her own communication system. "Lieutenant Santos, I'm impressed by your preparation. 3 years of planning shows remarkable dedication. Maya keyed her radio. I had good teachers. Task Force Reaper specialized in long-term operations behind enemy lines. Indeed, your team was exceptional. It's unfortunate they chose to interfere with matters beyond their understanding. They chose to serve their country instead of selling it to the highest bidder. General Hawkins laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. Country, Lieutenant, you still think in such simple terms. The world has moved beyond nationalism. Modern warfare is about resource management, strategic positioning, market control. Your team discovered a business operation that spans continents. They threatened billions in revenue. Maya felt the familiar rage building, the same fury that had sustained her through 3 years of planning. They threatened your profit margins, so you had them murdered. I had them relocated to a position where they could no longer cause damage. Unfortunately, that position happened to be a Syrian insurgent compound during a planned offensive. The casual admission of treason hung in the air like poison gas. Martinez stared at the speakers in disbelief, while Maya continued her final preparations. She'd known the truth for years, but hearing it confirmed in the general's own words brought a cold satisfaction. You sold our location to the enemy, Maya said quietly. I provided intelligence that served the greater strategic picture. Your team's interference would have disrupted operations across 3 theaters of war. 12 lives versus thousands of casualties that would have resulted from weapons shortages in Allied territories. Allied territories? You mean territories where your buyers operated? Semantics, Lieutenant. The point is that your survival has become problematic. You forced me to accelerate certain timelines, eliminate certain assets. General Hawkins paused at a security checkpoint, her details sweeping for threats. Captain Blake, for instance, has outlived his usefulness. Blake's voice crackled over the radio, panicked. General, I've done everything you asked. The security breaches weren't my fault. Captain Blake has been skimming profits for 2 years, General Hawkins continued conversationally. He also left evidence in his personal quarters that will conclusively link him to tonight's events. Very convenient. Maya realized what was happening. The general wasn't here for a confrontation. She was here for a cleanup operation. Blake, his security teams, even Maya herself were all loose ends to be eliminated. The woman had turned her own corruption investigation into a cover for removing anyone who could threaten her operation. You're planning to kill everyone, Martinez said, understanding dawning on his face. Not everyone, General Hawkins replied, apparently monitoring their communications. Sergeant Martinez, your file shows remarkable potential, clean record, no family connections that would interfere with operational requirements. You could have a very profitable future in private security. Working for you. Working for progress. The old model of military service is obsolete. Wars are fought with economics now, not ideology. I'm offering you a chance to be part of the future instead of dying for the past. Martinez looked at Maya, who was making final adjustments to her explosive devices. She turned the entire facility into a complex trap, but the general's arrival had added variables that even 3 years of planning couldn't have anticipated. What about the evidence? Martinez asked. The files Maya downloaded will disappear along with everyone who's seen them. The beauty of classified operations, Sergeant, is that they can be classified out of existence. No one will look for evidence that was never supposed to exist. Maya activated a final program on her computer, one that began transmitting encrypted data bursts to locations around the world. The general's confident voice faltered as she realized what was happening. Insurance policies, Maya explained calmly. Every major news outlet, multiple congressional offices, international war crimes tribunals. The evidence is already beyond your reach. Clever, but you're forgetting something important. General Hawkins had reached the main storage level, her security detail taking positions around the entrance. "I have resources you can't imagine. Media outlets can be convinced to bury stories. Politicians can be bought or blackmailed. International tribunals can be delayed indefinitely." "Maybe, but you can't buy every soldier who's going to hear these recordings." Maya activated her final surprise. Speakers throughout the entire base began broadcasting the conversation. Every operator, every support staff member, every person on Fort Bragg could hear their commanding general casually discussing treason and murder. The effect was immediate. Through her security feeds, Maya watched as Blake's remaining teams stopped advancing, confusion and anger spreading through their ranks. The convoy outside began receiving radio calls from other units demanding explanations. "Broadcast all you want," General Hawkins said, though her voice had lost some of its confidence. "Military personnel follow orders. They don't make policy decisions." "They also swear an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic," Maya replied. "Want to guess which category you fall into?" The first explosion shook the building as Maya triggered charges on the upper levels, sealing off escape routes. But instead of trapping the general, the demolitions created a different kind of pressure, psychological. Everyone in the facility now understood they were locked in with a woman who'd been planning this confrontation for 3 years. "Impressive preparation," General Hawkins admitted, continuing her advance despite the chaos above. "But you're making the same mistake your team made in Syria. You're thinking tactically when you should be thinking strategically." "Enlighten me." "You want revenge for 12 dead soldiers. I'm preventing a war that would kill 12,000. The weapons we move maintain balance of power in unstable regions. Without controlled distribution, conflicts escalate beyond containment." Maya laughed bitterly. "You're selling weapons to both sides and calling it peacekeeping." "I'm managing chaos. Your team stumbled into a situation they couldn't comprehend. They saw weapons moving to questionable buyers and assumed the worst. They never understood the larger picture. The larger picture, where American soldiers die to protect your profit margins. The larger picture where limited casualties prevent unlimited warfare." General Hawkins had reached the final security door, her detail preparing for entry. "Stand down, Lieutenant. You've made your point, exposed some uncomfortable truths, but this ends here." Maya checked her weapons one final time, the weight of 3 years' preparation settling on her shoulders. Through her cameras, she could see the general's security team, professional killers who wouldn't hesitate to eliminate anyone who threatened their employer. "You're right about one thing," Maya said quietly. "This does end here." The security door exploded inward, not from the general's breach charges but from Maya's own demolitions. The storage facility filled with smoke and debris as the final phase of her plan activated. Emergency lighting failed, plunging the area into near-total darkness. In the chaos that followed, Maya moved like the ghost her call sign suggested. She'd spent 3 years learning to fight in this environment, using tools and terrain that her enemies couldn't match. The general's professional killers found themselves facing an opponent who knew every inch of the battlefield, who turned familiar surroundings into a maze of death. "Welcome to my house," Maya whispered into the darkness. "Time for the final cleaning." The war that had begun in Syria 3 years ago was finally coming to an end.